Welcome to In Touch with Durham County, the show designed to provide you with information about Durham County government people, programs, and services. I'm Deborah Craig-Ray, General Manager of Strategic Planning and Innovation. We're still here with you virtually, socially distancing, and bringing you important information. Today, we are so pleased and honored to have as our guest new County Commissioner Nimasheena Burns. In our second segment, we'll be joined by Kevin Dick, President and CEO of the Carolina Small Business Development Fund, to update us on a successful small business grant and loan program that was implemented last year by the city, the county, and Duke University to help struggling businesses impacted by the pandemic. Commissioner Burns, again, welcome to In Touch. We're delighted to have you. For those who are not aware, you were elected in November 2020 and sworn into office in early December. And that was all in the middle of a pandemic.
Yes, it was. And it has been nothing but virtual, but absolutely nothing short of amazing since that day. So,
Excellent.
Hasn't stopped us from serving.
Right. So if you wouldn't mind, for people who may be new to our area, tell them a little bit about yourself and your background, if you don't mind.
Okay, so I oddly enough, I was actually born in Durham, but I'm from a little tiny town called Tar Heel, North Carolina, born and raised on a Chicken Foot Road. I ended up in the Triangle because I ended up going to Chapel Hill. So I'm one of the very few people in the U.S. who is actually a Tar Heel born, Tar Heel bred. And so when I die, I'll be a Tar Heel bred.
Yes.
It is very different now being a county commissioner here in Durham because, of course, Duke is here. And also I'm an alum of NCCU, my beloved NCCU. So I do my part to be an equal opportunity cheerer during sports. When I went to UNC, I got a degree in communications, minor in political science. And I then went on to North Carolina Central University where I got my master's in public affairs. And I started working in government, not local government, but state government. So I started out my career at the Governor's Highway Safety Program. So if anybody remembers Vince and Larry, the crash dummies, you remember Booze It or Lose It, Click It or Ticket, my office was covered in all of that stuff. So then I went on to the Attorney General's office where I worked on identity theft. I worked with frauds and scams, protecting seniors, child internet safety. I was at USDA for a while. Great work at USDA. So that little bit of federal experience was helpful. I moved on to the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs. So I was Director of Project Management and Communications there. And I currently am Deputy Chief of External Affairs for the North Carolina Office of Recovery and Resiliency, where we work to build homes that have been destroyed by either Florence or Matthew. And we work to keep people in their homes through our rental assistance program during the pandemic. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yes. So clearly you've had a robust career in state government service. So what attracted you to enter politics, specifically to run for Durham County Commissioner?
There were a lot. I always knew I wanted to run for office. I just felt like, I have to have this many experiences before I get in there. I didn't want to take it for granted. I didn't want to step into the space too young, too naive, too arrogant. And I've, managed, some of these billion-dollar programs. I've developed systems and worked in rural and urban and suburban communities. So I felt like I was in a position where I could actually step out and really almost come into it while new, but somewhat of a veteran. And one of the reasons why I wanted to step into government, because we can't make it all about me, right? I also was seeing things in my community I didn't like. I would see people ask questions, doing forums, and they would kind of they would not get either the correct answer, the right answer, or that concern was not taken as seriously. And I just knew with the little bit of experience, or the lot of bit of experience that I had, that there was more that could have been done. It could have been answered better. So I said I was tired of being a spectator. It's time to be a gladiator. So I jumped into the arena.
I love it. Exactly how did you meet voters during the campaign in a pandemic? I mean, clearly there was no rule book on campaigning in a pandemic.
I will tell you, interestingly enough, I don't think people really remember this, but for us, we actually, the state shut down. Now, the county shut down a week before, but the state shut down March 13th, right? So the primary was a week before that. So we actually were in our own campaign, still shaking hands, still hugging people, still kissing babies, still handing out, I'm handing out bottled water. I'm handing out hand warmers with my name on it. Because at that point, I'm not going to say it was still just up north, but I think for many people, even here, we thought it would be much like Zika. You remember how Zika stayed very centralized in Florida? So we thought it was going to stay very centralized. And it wasn't until the next week where we came out of this bubble. And I almost feel like that very next week, even though I wasn't in office yet, I was I was at a county commission meeting and everybody was fist bumping. Everyone was. So of course, then going into the general, you know how it is in Durham, it was pretty much over after the primary for some. People don't treat you that way. They treat you like you are in office. So I was constantly getting emails, constantly having people come out and say, Commissioner Burns, we want you to come and look. I said, I'm not a commissioner yet, but if you're running and people still care. So I still had to take strides, even then, and make sure my volunteers had gloves. And when we knocked on doors, we were very socially distant and we had on masks. We did all of that until November, and we did Zoom after Zoom after Zoom. We met people where they were. And that's not physically. I think what made our campaign differently, we met people where they were here and where they were here. And that was what made a difference.
Yeah. Absolutely. So if you don't mind, share with our viewers a few of your key interests. I mean, I remember you talking about, of course, economic development and education and addressing health disparities as a few examples of some of your priorities.
So listen, Deborah, if we had the entire hour, I could go into a deep dive. I am going to jump right now on economic development because I do think that is one of the issue areas where if we get it right, it's one of those rising tide lifts all ships. Right. I personally feel, and the data shows it, and public policy principles show it. If we can get people back to work, we can get this economy back. We can get it back in control. I often tell individuals, and I've said this more than once, the quickest way to stop a bullet is with a job. It just is, especially with the issues that we're dealing with right now, the increased gun violence. People are raw nerves now during the pandemic. I actually personally think one of the things that we need to do is, as we bring these jobs in, you and I both know, because we get the presentations every week, 36 different counties come into Durham every day to come to work. Every day to come to work. And so we have to do our part to make sure that we make sure these jobs are here for individuals in Durham. And we've done a lot of that. We've worked with the community college to expand on the Bulls initiative. We've worked very hard to bring an aseptic space here. So after they get done training, we can actually get them into a facility or incubator where they can learn how that firm works, and then we can move them ahead. So I'm really laser focused on that, because if we can get people good jobs, we're not leaning on affordable housing, which we have a very low inventory of. People can work here, stay here, play here, and benefit here. And so those are just a few of the things that I'm acutely focused on. We've done a lot of job fairs with many of the new organizations that are moving into Durham, and they've been representative of it.
Very good. So have you had many opportunities to interact with other commissioners across the state? Have you been on any regional or state committees?
I have. So lucky for me, not so lucky for me, Durham's rotation on the state board was actually not up. And I unanimously was voted in by my colleagues in District 9. So that's Durham, Chatham, Orange, and Wake, and Lee, to serve on our state board. So the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners has a state board, and that's been an awesome opportunity. And now it's rotated, and Lee County now has it. But it was great to serve on that board, great to build up some camaraderie among folks and really just say, hey, how can we operate as a region? I did enjoy going to the national convention. I enjoyed going to our state convention and actually fighting for a few bills and actually having amendments put in for clean water, clean energy, and to actually make gun violence a public health crisis. So it's been great working with folks statewide, not just from Murphy to Manio, but from Manio to LA County with county commissioners.
Awesome. Yes. Now, certainly this board is unique. I mean, what's it like serving on this historic all-female board of county commissioners?
I will say for us, we kind of, when endorsements came out, and this is not to take away from any of the candidates because we didn't know how it was going to fall, but there was an inclination that we might have been this first all-female board, right? We kind of saw it coming. And so then when it happened, and then the pandemic happened, you really did not get the opportunity to sit in it. Because I sit on a lot of boards that might be majority women or all women. But what I do know is when I get introduced, if I have a panel or if I'm bringing greetings, like that one bullet point that people mention, that is what gets a big roar, along with some other accolades I have. And so for me, I have to remind myself, do not take this for granted, because there's somebody in the audience who recognizes how big this is, because we're just busy doing the work, right? We are entrenched in the actual work, so we haven't even got to take it all in. And I also think it just shows that, the world was ready to see women lead and unafraid to see women lead. So I'm actually happy about that. And I just ask God every day, like, do not let me take this for granted, because there are little girls watching.
Yeah. So people may not know it, but in addition to serving on the Board of Commissioners, you all serve on many other boards and commissions throughout the community. What are some of the boards and commissions you serve on?
Well, I do serve on the Workforce Development Board. I enjoy that because it's it's interconnected with this economic development ideology, right? I serve on the Carolina Theater Board, which I enjoy. On Joint City County Commission. I also currently serve as a liaison on a few boards. So right now, a few task force. I also have the opportunity to serve on the Museums of Life Sciences Board. And that I really enjoy because it's open back up. We can get folks in. The theaters are opening back up. So I think for each one of us, we probably serve on about 8 different boards. I serve on some juvenile boards. And the grants that we're able to give out, the opportunities we get to meet with constituents on these various issues, and it's not just in this one very isolated county commission space. I would not change that for anything in the world. And I actually know some counties that don't operate that way. I say, you don't have to serve on boards? Oh my goodness. Like, how do you talk to your people? How do you get information? And it's also helpful to serve on those because sometimes you get the same presentation over and over again, which it can be repetitive, but it's nice to hear different voices react to that same information. And it makes it all the better for us when we actually have to come back as a board and vote on it or discuss it.
Yeah, right. So with all of that, how do you spend your spare time, or do you have any? Like, when do you sleep?
I'm not sure what that word means. I've heard of it. It starts with an L, a S. So let's spare, sleep. I might have to find a dictionary at the source. It is really hard, but it's worth it. I want to look back on this time and know that I gave it all that I could. But I also recognize, especially during this pandemic, I can admit that I've had family members to pass away. I also know I'm no good to anybody if I'm no good to myself. And I can't do great by these 300,000 plus people. So I do take the breaks. They're not long, but I do, I do take the breaks. And so we'll see. I don't know, this time next year, Commissioner Burns, when did you learn to play guitar? I don't know, in my spare time. It was a word that Deborah Craig-Ray said one day. I thought I would try spare out. And so we'll see what happens. But very, very little sleep, but it's worth it.
Yeah. So, I've seen you out in the community with our residents, and you particularly connect with our young people. What advice do you give to our young people to get them interested in civic engagement?
I ask them all that. I said, you all can join these boards. I think so many times people think about government as this thing that's not tangible. And it is. We have over 40 boards. And they say, oh, I can join this. I can actually have my voice heard. I can come to meetings. I can view them. I said, absolutely. Or at least engage us. I think that was one of the more surprising things that people found out. So I can submit a proposal. There are grant opportunities. And, young people, I like to still think I'm young. There's some gray hairs that I found this year. I didn't know where it came from. It just spontaneously combusted on top of my head. But I think that, they didn't even know that there were these partnership opportunities there. So that's the first thing. Letting them know. What is the adage? Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. You really got to let people know that you care about their issues, and also be willing to listen. Now, and some people might say, oh my gosh, that idea doesn't make any sense at all. it doesn't make any sense now, and maybe it doesn't make sense to you, but to this person in this community, it makes perfect sense, and they live here too. And so just really letting them understand that they absolutely positively matter is what gets them engaged. And then you're also honest with them. If I don't know an answer to something, I will honestly say, I don't know, but I will get back to you. People appreciate that level of honesty, and so I think that's helpful.
Yes,
They
they do.
appreciate that.
Well, our time has really moved. Do you have one final thought you'd like to add as we conclude?
Government is only as good as the people who are engaged in it. I invite you all to get engaged.
Awesome. Well, Commissioner Burns, it's been my honor to speak with you today, and I thank you so much for representing our residents. And we look forward to having you on a future
I
show.
look forward to it too in your new studio. I can't wait.
Yes, in the studio.
Yes.
Well, don't touch that dial. We have a second segment coming right up after this break. We will speak with Kevin Dick about helping small businesses. Stay with us.
Do you have prediabetes? North Carolina residents with prediabetes can enroll in a free or low-cost national diabetes prevention program. Trained coaches are standing by. Get started now at joinaprogram.org.
STEM is precise, no margin for error.
Dare to forget that. Dare to have fun with it. Get weird with it. Dare to load their minds. Dare to explore. Dare to STEM. Learn more at She Can STEM.
Welcome back to More in Touch. We're pleased to be joined by Kevin Dick, President and CEO of Carolina Small Business Development Fund. It's great to have you with us today, Kevin. It's been about a year since you joined us.
Right on time, Deborah. That's right. I'm glad to be back. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk to Durham about the Durham Small Business Opportunity Fund.
Wonderful. So let's refresh our community about the program. Durham County, the city of Durham, and Duke University essentially created the program in the summer of 2020 to help small businesses struggling during the pandemic. How much money was put on the table to get the ball rolling?
Deborah, roughly $2.8 million was made available to Durham small businesses. Duke University's generous contribution provided $1 million for grants, and then the city and county stepped up and collectively provided $1.8 million for loans.
So I guess you'd call it a public-private or maybe a public-university partnership.
I think it's a very unique public-private partnership in the sense that you have two public sector entities, one nonprofit, and one private university. It's unique as far as what I can see within our industry, and obviously it's been beneficial for a lot of Durham businesses.
Yes. So how was Carolina Small Business Development Fund selected to manage these millions?
So I would say that our track record as a community development financial institution that has the ability to deploy resources to small businesses with and really an organizational focus on small business financial assistance, technical assistance, and policy and research made us a good candidate to administer this program for the city and the county.
So we're talking about grants and loans. What made businesses actually eligible to apply for this assistance?
So there are a number of different criteria, but I'll keep it short. Generally speaking, we needed to make sure that there was some sort of COVID-related impact. The agreement that we entered into with both the county and the city, there was to be an emphasis on reaching businesses who have been most adversely impacted by COVID-19. And so that was the most significant criterion. We were also looking for businesses that were at least in business for 2 years, those that could present business tax returns, and a few other documents that would enable us to know that they're in business, but they're having trouble because of COVID-19, and that the relief we could provide them through a grant and or loan would be able to address operating expenses or I should say, revenues that they may have lost that offset operating expenses.
So briefly describe that loan program. How much money could a business actually apply for, and how much time was given for repayment?
Great question. So loans are between $5,000 and $35,000. The interest rates, wait for it, Deborah, 3%. That's
Wow.
below prime, right? So that is below the standard that banks would use to lend money to consumers and to small businesses. So 3%. Terms are anywhere up to 10-year repayment. And in Durham, both city and county agreed we don't want to require any collateral from businesses. So essentially, it's an unsecured 3% loan with a 10-year repayment term and interest only for the first 12 months. So
That's amazing.
these terms are pretty uncommon in the lending industry, and really designed to provide businesses with the type of relief that's needed in really, virtually unprecedented times.
Now, how does the grant program operate?
So the grant program had a maximum of 10,000. You notice I said had, because the grant program has run out of money.
Okay.
The demand for the program was so great that those funds were exhausted in roughly 6 months. And so right now, loans are still available. And as I said, at a 3% rate with a 10-year repayment term, they're almost, and no collateral, they're almost as close to grants as you can get when you consider a lending product.
Understood. Now, at this point, about how many small businesses have been assisted?
Roughly 180. So we've had grants and loans approved. And so we continue to work with businesses that want to apply for loans. We've transitioned the program from solely a small business relief program to one that still is COVID related, but more of a small business opportunity loan fund, which kind of expands the types of things that a business can do in applying for these funds.
So what do you expect will be the impact of that change from opportunity to opportunity rather than recovery?
Well, what we're hoping is that it opens the opportunity up to more businesses, and that it's also reflective of the fact that, due in part to resources through this program as well as others. We've all heard about PPP, we've heard about EIDL, and perhaps some other programs. There are businesses that have managed to survive thus far and actually may be in a position to thrive, maybe in a position to scale their businesses, grow the size of it, grow operations. Maybe they've gotten new contracts that are causing a business to have to scale up and really add resources. Yeah. And so we're hoping that the expansion of the program and sort of the redefinition of it and what everyone should soon see, a sort of a mass remarketing of it will open the opportunity to more businesses, enable more businesses to do more things and really not necessarily thrive in a quote unquote post-pandemic world. I don't think most people would say that we're there yet, but at least thrive in what I would call a new chapter of this pandemic.
Very, very important. Now, one of the things I recall is that your staff provided a great deal of technical assistance to these companies receiving the funds. Is that still the case? Do you maintain assistance to help these clients?
That is still the case, Deborah. And when people are applying for loans, we're there with them every step of the way to help them walk through applications and so forth. We also will be providing technical assistance once loans are funded. Soon we will also be releasing what we call a small business assessment tool with a lot of the applicants that we've seen. And so that we can really get a sense of what kind of pain points still exists for businesses. And so that we can work with the city and county to design effective programming that will help them, help these businesses be technically assisted long term. So where we can continue to be engaged in the work, as I said, we have been able to get a lot of funding out to businesses, over $1.8 million to this point. And, we're talking about loans as low as $5,000, grants, up to $10,000, and loans between $5,000 and $35,000, and grants of up to $10,000. So if you think about that in tranches that small, or portions that small, and $1.8 million being the aggregate amount that's been deployed, that's a significant amount of businesses. And what we know is that roughly 180 businesses have been funded with either a grant or a loan, and there may be a few businesses that have actually gotten both. So the program is still open. We're inviting businesses within Durham County to apply, and we really want to see those businesses not just stay on their feet, but continue to thrive as we know we're in an economically uncertain time, but we want these businesses to be able to continue thriving.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of the lessons that you learned, and did you use those lessons to sort of make these changes we've talked about?
Absolutely. We wanted to make sure that the program was more accessible than it was originally designed, but we also wanted to be cognitive of the changing economic times. It's right now, things are a bit different in October 2021 than they were in June 2020 when the program was launched. We want to make sure that the program is reflective of different economic realities. For example, in June 2020, restaurants were either completely closed or they were doing just curbside pickup. Now restaurants can open and people can go in, if restaurants have the staffing to do it. Personal services businesses the same way. Barbershops, beauty salons, they can take clients. But now it just might be a matter of, trying to get them back to the level of where they were before, but understanding they're also not completely devoid of revenue and client traffic.
Mm-hmm. So, Kevin, we've had a great conversation, but we're about out of time. How do people get more information if they're interested in applying?
Thanks, Deborah, for that. So if folks go to carolinasmallbusiness.org, as soon as you go on that website, there will be a pop-up page related to COVID-19 programs that we have, and you can click on Durham when that pop-up page comes up, and it'll take you right into the application process and give you all of the information that you need to know to apply. Okay.
So are there any final thoughts you'd like to leave us with?
There is funding available. It's 3%. The loans are at 3%. They have 10-year repayment terms, and there's no collateral needed. This is pretty much an unprecedented and very flexible program, and we really, really encourage people to apply now. One thing that I would say to any small business, scaling is all about having the resources to do it. And it's really if you can get those resources at low cost, this is the time to take advantage of those kinds of opportunities. So we really invite more applications from the Durham community.
Well, thank you, Kevin, and members of your staff for all you do for our Durham-based businesses, and we certainly appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you, Deborah. Happy to be here.
Well, that wraps up today's show. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time on In Touch with Durham County. Cheers.